Good morning and welcome to the Adams County Fair. We are going to get started with the Swine Show this morning. Exhibitors, please start getting your breeding gilts ready for Class 201-1. Exhibitors, please get your breeding gilts for Class 201-1 breeding gilts ready for the ring. Thank you.
Guilt class, but a very, very good one to go ahead and be second in this particular drive. Young man's blue-eyed one goes ahead and rounds out the class. Another one that's super stout in her feature. She's ultra big in her foot and bone. She's one to me that is a little bit more rock forward in her shoulder angle. She's a little bit more straight there and wants to compensate at the ground, getting flat on her pass turn. I think a really, really good class of breeding gilts. If you would, please give those exhibitors a round of applause.
Results from Class 201-1, we have Ada Lund with first and a purple, Porter Bissell second and a blue, Walker Bissell third and a blue. In the ring right now, we have Class 201-2, our breeding gilts. We have Morgan Schuler and Caden Hoffman.
I actually think a really challenging pair here in the second class of breeding gilts, because I don't think either one of these gilts is faultless, and yet I guess I just default back to more correct skeleton in my mind. I think the young man's belted one goes ahead and wins this class, and just in terms of soundness and functionality and flex, and she's a bit longer bodied and it kind of throws her out of balance so when you study her, but I think this one gets out and covers the ring with quite a bit more ease than what the spotted gilt does. I think she's one that is just more correct in her overall skeleton and function. I really like some things about the calico gilt, because you talk about one that is more proportional and more balanced in her build through the front 2/3, and I think that one's chest floor and look up ahead of her blade is very, very good. We just need to reconfigure this one behind. I think she's short and steep out of her rump. She wants to get really wide at her stifle and wants to set those rear legs outside the plane of her body wall, but I think a very, very good gilt in her own right. If you would, please congratulate those two exhibitors on a good class of gilts.
Class 201-2, Caden Kaufman first with a purple, Morgan Schuler second with a purple. Entering the ring right now, we have Class 201-3. We have Levi Fitzgerald, Ada Lund, and Connor Kaufman.
I think the solid black gilt is a very logical place to go ahead and start on this particular drive. And I think she's one that, from proportionality and just stoutness of feature, function, I think is the one that has to go ahead and win. Is she perfect? No, she's probably pushing the limits in terms of where I'd like her hind leg when you step in behind her, and she's getting a little masculine up through her head and neck, and yet I still think she's one that when you just add up totals is one that has to go ahead and win. A very, very good gilt to go ahead and start this particular drive. Got quite a bit closer for me between second and third, and I guess I just like the added function and build of the velvet gilt to go ahead and be second in this particular drive. I think she is one that's long-bodied and loose skeleton. She's one that tracks around the ring with probably a great deal more ease out of her hip and hind leg than what our class winner does. To me, she's just a little lower set and a little longer body, and that throws out her balance when compared to the black gilt that goes ahead and wins the class. Really nice one to fall in second. The blue gilt, again, is one that, much like our second place gilt, is a very longer bodied and a bit lower set, and it just kind of takes away from her balance. On top of this, I think maybe she's carrying just a little bit too much fill. She's got a lot of cover and condition back there through her rear rib and flank. I do like that gilt from a length and extension out ahead of her blade, a very feminine gilt. A really good class of gilts. If you would please give all three of those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 201-3. We have Ada Lund first with purple, Levi Fitzgerald second with a blue, Connor Kaufman third with a blue. Entering the ring right now, we have class 201-4 with Morgan Schuler and Ada Lund. After this class, we'll bring the first place pigs from each of the previous classes back in for contention for the champion and reserve champion breeding gilt. Down in the fair building, there is plenty of biscuits and gravy still available for free will donation. In the building, there is biscuits and gravy and sausage and orange juice for free will donation. Please go down and enjoy. Thank you.
I think this is a really challenging pair because I think it's very difficult to separate the holes in these two. I think both bring some super positives to the table, and yet I think there's an area on both of them that I've got to reconfigure and restructure, and yet I think both offer lots of positives. The young lady's blue-eyed one is the one I'm going to go ahead and start this particular class with. I think the front 2/3 of this one are impeccable. I think she's elevated at the point of her shoulder. She ties her neck in high at the top side of her shoulder. She's super level in her lines, and the young lady does a tremendous job getting this one driven. I think where she beats the second place one is when she comes directly at me. That she's square to the ground, she's truer on that front foot. You step in behind her, and I think that's where her major fault comes. She wants to throw that right rear outside of her body wall and plant on the outside of her foot, and I'd really like to square her as she goes to the ground, and yet I think mobility and function help this one up to the top of this particular drive. Not to take anything away from the young lady's belted gilt. I went back and forth on this pair because I do think there's a lot of good in this one. I actually prefer this one's skin and hair. I think she looks fresher about her skin and hair. I'd like to knock the rough hairs off of that white one. I think this one's presented to a high degree. I think the young lady drives a fantastic one. To me, when she comes right at me, she's pigeon-toed, she's down on her front pasterns. I've got to make her more correct in the angle of that shoulder, and I'd maybe like to clean her up in her pole and the top side of her neck. But I think a very, very good one to go ahead and fall second this particular drive. If you would, please congratulate both those exhibitors.
Results from Class 201, Ada Lund first with the purple, Morgan Schuler second with the purple. Coming into the ring now, we will have our first place from each class for the champion and reserve champion breeding guild. From Class 201-1, we'll have Ada Lund with Animal 65-165. From Class 201-2, we have Kaden Kaufman with Animal 65-231. From Class 201-3, we have Ada Lund with Animal 65-163. And from Class 201-4, we have Ada Lund with Animal 65-164.
Well, if you would, please congratulate these four exhibitors, or I guess two exhibitors, on a really good set of gilts out here. I think it's a challenging decision out here when we get them back out, because again, I think each one of them needs to be changed in an area or two, and yet as I look at these and what I would be trying to do at home if I had these gilts, I think all of them present some very big positives for making the next generation better, and I think ultimately that's the goal, is to make each generation better than the next. I do think there's one that came out and hit me extremely hard in some areas, and I think the front 2/3 of this gilt is fantastic. If we could change her in area, I think we'd be able to push her up into an elite category. Young lady's blue-eyed gilt out of the last class to be her champion.
The champion breeding guild is Ada Lund, Animal 65-164, coming out of Class 201-4. We will now bring in the second place animal from Morgan Schuler, Animal 65-286. This is for contention of the reserve champion breeding guild.
we bring that second place gilt back out here, and I think she definitely drops right into contention. And again, I would like to change her in an area, and yet I still think she's extremely high quality in her overall look and fits in very, very well with these other three. We get her back out here. I think she pushed the champion extremely hard. She's going to go ahead and be reserved. Congratulations.
Reserve champion goes to Morgan Schuler from class 201-4 with animal 65-86. We will take banner photos after the show. Banner photos will be taken all after the show. We'll be moving into our market gilt division. Exhibitors in class 401 market gilts, please bring your animals to the ring. Champion breeding gilt went to Ada Lund. That banner was sponsored by Miltner Insurance Services. The reserve champion breeding gilt went to Morgan Schuler, and that banner was sponsored by Schuler Farms. The champion breeding gilt will be representing Adams County at the Best of the Southwest Shootout in Taylor County on July 28th, so look for Ada's breeding gilt there.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Always enjoy hearing you guys on the radio.
Oh, good. It's a beautiful day.
It is so pretty. You know, we've been blessed all year.
Our judge today is Kelly
And our
Sheets.
house set right
Kelly is
neighbors
from
to
Deering,
houses
Iowa.
that
He
got
graduated from
destroyed.
Iowa State University with an animal science degree in 2010, where he was on the Iowa State livestock judging team.
Thanks for
He
coming.
currently works as a livestock feeding consultant at First McNeese Company. He owns and operates Vegas Show Pigs with his wife Anna and 3 kids, as well as his father. He is currently running 20 sows of 5 different breeds and selling pigs across the country. Let's give Kelly a round of applause for coming and being our judge. In the ring right now, we are starting our market division. We have our class of market gilts. We have Connor Kaufman, Ava West, and Morgan Schuler. Weights range from 209 pounds to 226 pounds.
Only one class of market gilts, and yet I think it's still a high quality class. I like the young ladies Calico to go ahead and start this particular drive and win this division. I just think one, in terms of presentation, build, and balance, is one that has to get up to the top in a hurry. I think she's one that, when you study her from the side, I think the angles of her skeleton are correct. I think she's one that presented exceptionally well, and one that, when you study her from a market hog fundamentals, I do think there is the most amount of spread and the most amount of dimension up on the top of her skeleton, and works the biggest hip and rump. I think that's the one that has to go ahead and win this particular drive. I like the young man's blue to go ahead and be reserved in this division, and she's one that, from a function standpoint, I think is probably a bit looser in her skeleton, and one that tracks the ring with just a bit more ease. And yet, I think this one gives up quite a bit when you get up on top of her. I think she's a little flatter and plainer about her blade shape. She is one that has some crease down the top side of her skeleton, and yet I think she gets a little more nondescript when you study her back through her hip and rump when compared to the class winner. A nice one to go ahead and fall second this particular drive. The young lady that rounds out the class on the far end, I think you have to give her credit because I think that is a sound, functional skeleton one that tracks the ring relatively easily. To me, this one's just quite a bit less dimensional when you talk about the amount of product that's laid on her frame. I'd like to stouten her up, give her just a shot more muscle to get any higher. A really good class of pigs. If you would, please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
We'll be moving into our market barrow classes, starting with 301-1. Exhibitors in class 301-1, please bring your pigs to the ring. Thank you. Results from class 401, market gilts. We have Morgan Schuler, first with a purple. Connor Kaufman, second with a blue. Ava West, third with a blue. Morgan Schuler will receive the champion market gilt as well. That banner is sponsored by the Adams County Farm Bureau. Connor Kaufman will also receive the reserve champion market gilt. That banner was sponsored by the Adams-Taylor County Iowa Coin Board. Starting off our market barrow division with class 301-1, we have Ava West, Hudson Bissell, and Walker Bissell. Weights range from 178 pounds to 182 pounds.
Obviously, some lighter weight market barrows here to start off with, and obviously these are still a little ways from their end point, and yet I think there's a quality one to go ahead and start with. That's the young lady's Calico barrow out here, and he's one to me that's probably the most correct in his overall skeleton. I think he's the one that's the freshest and most youthful about his center body and head and neck. He's one that obviously still needs to come with some more finish and get a little heavier weight, and yet I think as we project him, he's the one that has to go ahead and win this particular drive. The Belted Hog that comes in second is one that probably does have an advantage in terms of shape up high and the amount of dimension he's got from behind. To me, this one's just a little staler in his overall look, a bit more mature about his head and neck. I don't know how much grow is left in that one, and yet I think it's still a very logical place to go ahead and land second. The hog that comes in third, to me, is one that you have to respect the practicality and overall function of this hog. He's made to be out here and grow, and yet it's still a little ways from his end point. I think once we get another 50 or 60 pounds on this one, it's going to be a very valuable hog at this stage of the game. Just needs a shot more muscle. If you would, please congratulate all three of those exhibitors.
Results from class 301-1. Ava West, first with the blue. Walker Bissell, second with the blue. And Hudson Bissell, third with a blue. In the ring right now, we have Class 301-2, Porter Bissell, Hayden Kaufman, and Hudson Bissell. Their weights range between 207 to 208 pounds.
I think the Berkshire is a very logical place to go ahead and start this particular class, just in terms of dimension and stoutness and opened up on the top side of the skeleton. I think this one has clear advantages when you get up on top of the livestock. I think he's one that is driven extremely well. I really appreciate this one's skin and hair. I think this is a really good one, very logical one to go ahead and start this particular class. It's pretty close for me between second and third, and obviously some rural development hogs here, and I think ones that you have to appreciate again for their functionality and practicality. These are everyday hogs, and yet when you get up on top of them, I think it's very clear which goes where. I think the young man's barrow here is the one that has to go ahead and be second. There's particular drive. I think there's more dimension on the top side of the skeleton. I think there's more turn to his rib cage. Not to take anything away from the barrow that ends up in third. I think that's a long-bodied, extended kind of a hog. We just need to lay more muscle on that one to get any higher in this particular drive. If you would please congratulate those three.
Results from Class 301-2. We have Hayden Kaufman first with a purple, Hudson Bissell second with a blue, and Porter Bissell third with a blue. As you're looking at the program, you can see that we have a lot of pigs here at the Adams County Fair this year. We have 92 head of hogs here at the fair. Pretty good turnout at weigh-in in April. We had 97 pigs weighed in, so we only lost 5 between that time to now. So 92 pigs here in the barn. That is 24 kids that are showing pigs. So excellent numbers here at the Adams County Fair. Thank you to all the parents and supporters for making sure these kids bring their animals and be able to represent them well here at the Adams County Fair Swine Show. In the ring right now, we have Class 301-3, Morgan Schuler, Hudson Bissell, and Porter Bissell. Their weights range from 219 to 223 pounds.
Well, again, I think a pretty logical place to go ahead and start this particular drive. The young lady's belted barrel to me is one that actually could stand quite a bit more competition out here. I think this one is really good in his lines, really good in his proportions and build, and I like a lot of things about this one. And then when you get up on top of him, I think there's plenty of product working down this one's top, plenty of shape and dimension out of his top and down through his hip. Very logical place to go ahead and start in this particular drive. Obviously, these pairs become very difficult to separate. I mean, these hogs are bred to be very similar, so that we've got a very uniform product going to the shelf. And yet, I think when you break this pair down, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, and yet I think it's just as simple as the amount of dimension that are laid on their skeleton. The taller young man with the blonde hair over here to my right is going to go ahead and be second in this particular class. I think he's one that does have more spread up high. There is just a shot more shape on the top side of his skeleton. Then when you study him in the rib shape and curvature of the rib cage, I think that one is more robust and rounder there in his rib cage, one that falls ahead in the second real quickly for me. Not to take anything away from the big outline extended kind of one that comes in 3, and yet I just think we've got to give him a crisper shape up high and make him just a shot more dimensional as you study him going directly away. A very good class of hogs. If you would please give all those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 301-3, Morgan Schuler first with the purple. Hudson Bissell second with the blue. Porter Bissell third with the blue. In this next class, we will only have 2 pigs. Caden Kaufman's is a scratch, so we'll only have 2 pigs in class 301-4. In class 301-4, we have Ada Lund and Porter Bissell. Their weights are 230 pounds.
Only 2 head in this class, and yet again, I think a very logical place to go ahead and start. I like the young lady's belted barrel to go ahead and start this particular drive. I think one, just in terms of what a market hog should be, I think there's a ton of spread and dimension on a 230-pound frame up high here. I think there's a big back shape rolled up in this one, and one that has a ton of shape and dimension down his top and out through his hip. And couple that, I think she's got him presented extremely well. I would like to fix him in the way that he hinges and goes from behind. I'd like to maybe make him just a nickel smoother there in his ham loin hookup, and yet I think one that wins this class relatively handily. Not to take anything away from the blue hog. I think big outline, extended kind of hog, extremely sound and functional as it gets out and covers the ring. I think one that does so with a relative amount of ease, and yet we've got to give this one more shape and dimension on the top side of the skeleton. A very good class of hogs. Please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 301-4. We have Ada Lund first with the purple. Porter Bissell second with the blue. In the ring right now, we have class 301-5. We have Ada Lund, Morgan Schuler, Avery Amdor, and Ellie Amdor. Their weights range from 248 to 256 pounds.
I actually think a very challenging top pair in this particular drive. I think both are high quality individuals, and yet the one I end up electing to go with is the young ladies here in front of me. I just think one from a stoutness of feature, function, and build, I think that one has to go ahead and win. And then when you get right in behind him, actually has a very clear advantage. And I think that one's squarer and truer as he goes to the ground, and has just a shot more depth to that to the center part of his ham. I think one that is a very, very good individual out here to go ahead and win this particular class. Not to take anything away from the young ladies' Velvet Barrow over there on the far end. I think the front 2/3 of that one are very, very good. I actually think he is better out ahead of his blade. He ties his neck in higher at the point of his shoulder. I really, really like that one's presentation. To me, where his major concern comes is when you drop in behind him. I think he's one that wants to hook that left rear as he's studying from behind. He's one that gets a little more shallow in through his twist. I'd like to drop him with just a bit more depth there. I think a very, very good one to go ahead and end up second in this particular drive. Got pretty close in 3 and 4 for me. I like the young ladies more blue hog here on the over by the backdrop to go ahead and be 3. I think he's one that presents more dimension up high, and one that definitely has more roll to the center part of his body. This one that ends up in 4th is a bigger outline, extended kind of hog that obviously has gotten around the ring extremely well. To me, we've got to give him more dimension when you get on top of him, especially in through the seat of his pants. A very good class of hogs. If you would please give all those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 301-5. Ada Lund first with a purple. Morgan Schuler second with a purple. Avery Amdor third with a blue. Ellie Amdor fourth with a blue. In this next class, 301-6, we will have an addition of Logan Herring, pig number 65-228, weighing 268 pounds. Again, in this class, 301-6, we'll have an addition of Logan Herring, pig number 65-228, weighing 268 pounds. In the ring right now, we have class 301-6. We have Morgan Schuler, Logan Herring, Emma Amdor, Avery Amdor, Ada Lund, and Ellie Amdor. Their weights range between 261 and 276 pounds.
I actually think a very challenging class, and all the way through, honestly, all the way down to 6. I think we've got some good parts and pieces, and yet, for me, even as the class winner, he still presents some challenges because as I get him out here and study him, I think there's an awful lot I like about this one, especially the silhouette he draws up, and yet we've got to call it out when I see it. I think maybe this one is still exhibiting just a fair amount of more characteristics. I don't know if maybe he retained the cord or what's going on. He's a little aggressive out here and wanting to foam, and yet it's not my job to enforce any rules or any of that. I still think that's a very, very good pig. I think the front 2/3 of that one are exceptional in terms of where that one's head and neck sit on his shoulder. I think that one's stoutness a feature. I think his just sheer silhouette is one you have to admire. He's maybe a little harder and more raw at the top of his skeleton and wants to pinch there in his ham loin just ever so slightly. If I change him, I make him just a bit smoother there, but I think an awfully good one to go ahead and win this particular drive. The the bearer that comes in second is one that definitely has a clear advantage in terms of rib cage, practical center body, one that's ultra fresh about his center body, got a great big shape rolled up his back. I think that one, when you just study the power and dimension, that one has a clear advantage in this class. There's a lot of areas I'd like to change in this one though too. I think he's one that's got a little too much set to his rear leg. He wants to run uphill, but I think a lot of that is how much set he's got in that rear leg. He's a bit more fragile in his overall bone work as well when compared to the class winner. I think a very, very good place to go ahead and fall second this particular drive. The young lady's black-nosed one is the one I'm going to go ahead and in third with in this particular drive. I just think that's a big outline, practical kind of hog that's got a bunch of dimension laid on the top side of him. He is one that's starting to be more appropriate in his finish and more appropriate in his weight compared to some of the other hogs that we've had in these classes below. I think a very nice one to go ahead and in third in this particular drive. Fourth place here is the young man's blue one over here. Again, I think a big, practical, centered one that's got a lot of dimension. To me, this one's just a bit more refined in its bone work. Needs to be stout in its feature. One that gets maybe a little bit choppy in that rear step. It's a nice one to go ahead and in four in this particular drive. In 5, we've got just a sheer separation in terms of structural correctness. I think although this one is a little light in terms of muscle, I think that's a good practicality, or good practical center body one. I think that's one that's more correct in its hind leg function. And to round out the class, I think we've got a barrel, again, big in his outline, lean in his overall composition, one that just doesn't use his hind leg well enough today. A very good class of hogs nonetheless. If you would please give him a big round of applause.
Results from class 301-6. We have Morgan Schuler first with a purple. Ada Lund second with a purple. Emma Amdor third with a blue. Logan Herring fourth with a blue. Ellie Amdor fifth with a blue. And Avery Amdor sixth with a red. In the ring right now for class 301-7, we have Emma Amdor, and Avery Amdor, weighing 279 to 286 pounds.
Well, again, I think when you study these hogs, obviously they're all bred to be very, very similar. Again, like I mentioned, so we get a uniform product on the line, and yet I think there is one to me that kind of stands out as the logical place to start. You talk about the biggest outline, most extended one that's got the most amount of product laid on his frame. I think that's the young lady here in front of me. I think that's the one that's the most opened up. I think he's the most correct in his composition. I think he turns the most shape down the top of his blade. I think that's the one to go ahead and logically end up here in first. The one that comes second to me is one that kind of follows the same pattern and mold as what our class winner does. To me, this one's just a bit more, I guess, I'll say heavier conditioned in his conformation, more finished, if you will. He's one that's carrying quite a bit more excess down through his throat and through his belly. To me, that one needs to be cleaned up in his overall composition, and that's where the third place hog, I think, has an advantage. I think he's definitely leaner about that head and neck. He's leaner in through that belly. To me, this one needs to have just a shot more rib and body and practicality in through his center body. But I think a very, very good class of pigs. If you would please give all three of those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 301-7. We have Avery Amdor first with a blue. Emma Amdor, pig 177, second with a blue. And Emma Amdor, pig 176, third with a blue. In the ring right now, we have class 301-8, Avery Amdor, Emma Amdor, Ellie Amdor, and Ellie Amdor. Those pigs weigh between 291 and 303 pounds. After this class, we will have the first place pigs from each of the previous classes of the Market Barrow division to please come to the ring for champion and reserve champion Market Barrow. After this class, we will be having the first place pigs from each class of the Market Barrow division come to the ring for champion and reserve champion Market Barrow.
I think this is actually a very challenging class. We talk about cookie cutters, and I think very, very similar and just minute differences between them. And honestly, for what these pigs are, I think that's exceptional. We're talking about like a first cut set of hogs here, and I think ones that have grown extremely well, they're doing very well on feed, and still ones that have grown at that pace and still not fat. When you study these, I think all four of them are exceptional in their carcass composition. I think they all put together some very neat pieces in terms of the amount of shape and dimension they've got up high, and still very cracked going through their center body and done well for these kids. If you want to place them a different way, I understand. I think it's very, very difficult to split the hairs on these. Again, I think for me, as you just get down on top of the livestock, it's easy to kind of make your differences or cut your teeth there. I like the young lady's predominantly blue one to go ahead and win this class. I think he is the one that's the most got the most curvature to his rib cage. I think he is the one that turns the most spread up high. I think that's a very good one to go ahead and fall first in this particular drive. For me, the young man here with the blue speckled one is the one that's going to go ahead and be second. And I think he follows the class winner in terms of dimension and shape up high. He is one to me that's a little lower set at the point of his shoulder and wants to get a bit more tentative in his rear step. But I think, again, a very good one to go ahead and fall second in this particular drive. The young lady here, I hear 45, is going to go ahead and be third in this particular class. Again, one that's very practical about his center body, big and square in his top. One that's getting just a bit heavier in his overall condition when compared to the other three. But I think a very nice one to go ahead and fall third in this particular drive. And then the young lady's predominantly white one that goes ahead and falls third or fourth in this particular class is one, again, a big outline, extended kind of a hog, very practical about his center body, very tentative in his rear step, and one that's quite a bit more nondescript in his top shape. But a very good class of hogs nonetheless. If you would please congratulate those exhibitors.
Results from class 301-8. Avery Amdor first with a blue. Ellie Amdor, pig 196, second with a blue. Emma Amdor, third with a blue. Ellie Amdor, fourth with a blue. We'll now be bringing in the first place from each of the Market Barrow classes in contention of the champion and reserve champion Market Barrows. As a reminder, we will be taking all of our banner photos after the conclusion of the show. All banner photos will be after the conclusion of the show. For contention of our champion, Market Barrow, we have from class 301-1, Ava West. From class 2, Kaylin Kaufman. From class 3, Morgan Schuler. From class 4, Ada Lund. From class 5, Ada Lund. From class 6, Morgan Schuler. From class 7, Avery Amdor. From class 8, Avery Amdor.
Well, definitely some different parts and pieces as we get back out here for Champion Barrow Drive. But if you would, please give all these exhibitors a big round of applause. I think they all deserve it. You know, everybody wants to make the final drive at their county fair, and obviously different parts and pieces, and some of them are definitely more in contention than others, and yet I think it's all very good for these kids to have the opportunity out here to be able to experience this and have a chance for champion. And yet, as we get them back out here, I think there's one in my mind that I remember from class that really stood out in terms of just balance and build and presence, and one that is extremely good in his lines, heavy in his bone work. He knows the way back to the barn, but I think he's the best one. The young lady that's headed out the end gate is going to be your champion. Congratulations.
The champion Market Barrow goes to Ada Lund from class 301-5. That's page 65-161. We will now need Morgan Schuler, second place pick from that class, 65-88 for contention of the reserve champion Market Barrow. Again, the champion Market Barrow goes to Ada Lund. Animal 65-161. That banner is sponsored by Feeder Screen and Farm Supply. In the ring, we have Morgan Schuler, second place pig from class 301-5. That's pig 65-288. This is for contention of the reserve champion Market Barrow.
I think second out of that class comes out here and definitely still offers some pieces that pull into contention. I think that one's elevation and look up ahead of his blade is really, really good. And yet, to me, there was another one that pushed the champion relatively hard. I think he's one that is really, really good in his balance, good in his bone work, really good looking ahead of his blade. This young lady here in front of me is going to have your reserve. Congratulations.
The reserve champion Market Barrow goes to Morgan Schuler with pig 65-287. That pig came out of the 6th class there. The reserve champion banner was sponsored by Schuler Farms. We'll be moving into the carcass classes next. Class 501-1. Exhibitors, please be bringing your pigs to the ring for class 501-1 for the carcass classes. As a reminder, all banner photos will be taken at the conclusion of the show. Other events at the Adams County Fair today include the Poultry, Rabbit, and Cat Show is at noon here at the show ring. At 4 o'clock is the livestock judging contest here at the show ring as well. In the pavilion, the Adams County Fire, Ambulance, and Sheriff offices will be here from 4 o'clock to 6 p.m. at the pavilion. That's the Adams County Fire, Ambulance, and Sheriff's offices. From 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock is the Bliska Advent Church Praise Band. In the pavilion, the Advent Church Praise Band will be in the pavilion from 4 to 6 p.m. World Development Barbecue takes place at 5 o'clock in the pavilion. And then here at the show ring is the Celebrity Showman at 7 p.m. Please join us to see some of our county celebrities showing a variety of animals. That's at 7 o'clock here at the show ring. In the ring right now, we have started our carcass division. We have Ava West and Dana Stormer. Their weights between 205 and 208 pounds.
Well, these carcass classes, it's not, there's not going to be a whole bunch of cool terms or a bunch of different ways to say things. So you may hear the same thing over and over and over again. And yet, I think the basic concept is we got to judge what these hogs would be hanging on the rail. And I think some of them are going to get to have an actual carcass hanging and be judged that way. And in this particular class, obviously, we're 205 and 208 pounds, so we're still outside the marketable weight range and ones that would take a pretty big ding if we sent them to the rail today in terms of carcass weight. So I think it's just a matter of breaking down what's there right now. I think the young lady's blue hog out here in front of me is the one that to me has the most dimension and the most spread up high. He is the most shapely down his top and out through his rump. One that is leaner in his overall composition. I think packs the most amount of product, and while still, although he is underweight, I think there is more terminal value there. The young lady that ends up second in this particular class, again, is one that obviously has a very practical, good-looking pig, and yet we're still just a ways off in terms of the amount of finish and the amount of product that one needs to hit the rail. I think he's one that has to have a bit more spread and a bit more shape up high to get any higher in this particular class. Very good class of pigs nonetheless. If you would please congratulate those two exhibitors.
Results from Class 501-1, Ava West, first with a blue, Dana Stormer, second with a blue. Entering the ring right now is 501-2, our Carcass Class 501-2. We have Megan Ramsey, Levi Fitzgerald, Hudson Bissell, Michael Ramsey, and Dylan Stormer. Their weights are between 224 and 231 pounds.
Well, obviously a show pig that leads off this Carcass class, and yet I think when you just get up on top of this one relative to the others, I had the opportunity to get up on top of these when they're all mixed in together, and there's easily the most spread and the most dimension up higher. The most product is what it boils down to. I think there's a bigger eye laid in that one. There's a bigger hip and rump in that one. I think he is a bit heavier in his finish relative to these out here, especially at this weight, and yet I still think the most amount of product is laid on this one. Goes ahead and wins this class relatively handily. The Calico down on the far end, running back to me now, is going to go ahead and be second. I think this one has an obvious lean advantage in terms of just the amount of shape and expression that it has relative to the rest of the class. He does need a bit more spread, and I'd like to see him with a bit more dimension behind his blade. And yet I think easily, from a cutability standpoint, that one has to go ahead and fall second in this particular class. Sorry, right here in front of me is third. I got confused there for a second. I do think there's a practical one to go ahead and fall third in this particular class. I do think that one's a little heavier in terms of the amount of finish that it's carrying, but I do think there's plenty of spread up high on that one. There's still plenty of dimension on that one, one that if we could make just a bit cleaner and more lean in its overall composition, I think one that could push a little harder for second in this particular class. That's a concern with the one here in fourth as well. I think a very good hog in its own right, plenty of quality in that one. To me, at this particular weight, it's carrying too much finish. And I think that one becomes a composition concern as we get closer to that target weight of 280, 285. I think that one needs to be just a bit more trim in its overall appearance. But a really nice one nonetheless. And then the blue neck one that rounds out the class is one that definitely has a leanness and cutability advantage over the one right ahead of it, and yet to me, I just don't know if there's enough product laid on that one at this particular juncture. If you would, please congratulate all 5 of those exhibitors.
Test, there. Test. In the ring right now, we have Class 501-3. We have Dana Stormer, Porter Bissell, Max Ramsey, and Connor Kaufman. Their weights are between 233 and 239 pounds. Results from Class 501-2. Levi Fitzgerald, first with the blue. Michael Ramsey, second with the blue. Megan Ramsey, third with the blue. Dylan Stormer, fourth with the blue. And Hudson Bissell, fifth with the blue. Again in the ring right now, we have Class 501-3.
Well, here in these carcass classes, it is a little challenging. Obviously, a very different mentality than what we go with as we judge the market hog show, and we're basically judging these hogs on what they would look like hanging from a rail. And I think this one, to me, in this particular class, is the one that has to go and win, and just purely from a leanness and carcass composition standpoint, I just think he's more appropriate in his body size and length of body. I think he's one that when you study him relative to the one I have in second, I think he's longer bodied. I think there's more product, more genuine product hanging on that one's frame than what this other one is. This blue right here in front of me is the one that I'm going to go ahead and use second, and I think when you talk about just dimension, I think there's plenty of hog there. At this particular weight, I question whether or not much of that is all product. I think maybe there's a hair more finish laid on this one, as evidenced by that one's neck and lower belly. I think there's quite a bit of condition or quite a bit of finish laid on that one. When you study that one, I think his true concern comes in how compact he is. When you hang that one on the rail, it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while you can get dinged for length of body and not being long enough bodied on the rail, and that one becomes a concern for me in terms of carcass composition, which is why he goes ahead and falls second in this particular drive. Young man here in front of me is one that's going to end up being third, and I think one that actually has an advantage in terms of cutability relative to that one in second. I think he is one that is more correct in his lean and one more correct in his composition. To me, there's just got to be more of him. We've got to come with some more stuff. And then the young lady that rounds out the class again is one that I need to get him to tie in better there at his shoulder. I'm afraid that one to be dinged for how he looks skeletally. But I do think there is a good practical center body on that one. A very good class of hogs. If you would, please give them a big round of applause.
Results from Class 501-3. We have Max Ramsey, first with the blue. Connor Kaufman, second with the blue. Porter Bissell, third with the blue. And Dana Stormer, fourth with the blue. In the ring right now, we have Class 501-4, Michael Ramsey, Logan Herring, Michael Ramsey, Kristen Stark, Dana Stormer, and Logan Herring. Weighing 240, 250 pounds.
again, these carcass classes, and there's not going to be a whole lot of breakthrough information, but yet I think there's one that, in my opinion, leads this class relatively handily. This young man's hog here in front of me. I think that's the one just in terms of carcass cutability, composition, and the amount of product laid on that one. I think that one has to go ahead and win. I just think that one's more appropriate in the overall finish. I think this one here, this red roan, is the one that has to go second, and really the only reason he gets beat is from a composition standpoint. I think he's carrying just a bit more flesh and a bit more cover on the lower third of his body. If we could clean him up there and make him just a hair trimmer, I think that one pushes pretty hard for first this particular class. The barrel over here trying to get out is the one that I go ahead and use for third. I think a very big, heavyweight, practical kind of a hog. It definitely has plenty of overall dimension laid on him. Again, to me, that one becomes a bit of a composition concern when you talk about flesh and the amount of fat that he's carrying. The barrel here in fourth, the roan rumped one, or red rumped one, is the one I think actually has the class advantage in terms of leanness. I think that one is the leanest over his 10th. I think he's one that carries a pretty fair amount of product. When you study him right behind, I don't know that he's carrying as much in his shorts as what I'd like to see. I'd like to maybe give him just a bit more bulk and dimension there to get any higher in this particular class. On down the line, we got a pair of hogs that need just a shot more dimension and shape to get any higher in this particular class. If you would, please give all those kids a big round of applause.
Results from class 501-4. We have Logan Herring first with a blue. Tristan Stark second with a blue. Logan Herring third with a blue. Michael Ramsey fourth with a blue. Dana Stormer fifth with a blue. And Michael Ramsey sixth with a blue. In this next class, we will have a scratch Logan Herring 65-228. Logan Herring 65-228 is a scratch. In the ring right now, we have class 501-5. There are 6 pigs in this class because of that scratch. We have Dylan Stormer, Michael Ramsey, Reagan Sontag, Mark Ramsey, and Megan Ramsey. Their weights are between 261 and 269 pounds.
honestly, as we get in these heavier weights, it kind of makes the job just a little easier because we start to see some very apparent compositional differences. And yet, if we were judging these as just market barrels, I think the placing would be very different because we've got some issues in terms of structure and mobility. And yet, as long as they can get up to the feeder and get down the chute to the truck and then make it to the rail, that's really all that matters. I think that's the young man's barrel here that goes ahead and wins this class. In terms of carcass composition, cutability, the amount of product laid on that one, I think that one has to go ahead and win this particular drive. Is he a little ouchy up front? Would I like to change his front shoulder angle? Yes, but that's got nothing to do with his carcass composition, and yet that makes him win this particular drive. Got quite a bit closer for me, and yet I think the one that follows closest next is the young man's, young lady's barrel here in front of me. And I think he's one that is a big, heavyweight kind of a hog. He's one that's got a bunch of spread. He's probably carrying more dimension back through his hip and ham than what our class winner is even. To me, he's just a bit fatter and a bit rounder in his overall composition. I think one that goes ahead and fits second pretty handily for me. The young man here in front of me is going to go ahead and be third in this particular class. You talk about one just very similar to our second place one. A big, practical kind of hog, plenty of dimension laid on his top and down through his hip. Again, to me, start to clean that one up through his lower third. I think we can probably push a little harder for first or second in this particular class. We're running into some concerns in terms of carcass composition and overall trimness in these bottom three. I like the young man over here to my right to go ahead and be fourth in this particular drive. I just think a big, practical, heavyweight kind of a hog to go ahead and be fourth. The young man's red belted one is the one that I use fifth. I think he's one that's quite a bit less descriptive in his shape, one that needs to be just a hair longer body and a bit more dimensional up high. And then the young lady's white girl that rounds out the class to me is one that we've got to fix out of his hip and hind leg. There's not much product laid on his rump, and one that we need to give just a shot more shape up high. Very good class of hogs. If you would, please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from Class 501-5. Michael Ramsey, first with the blue. Megan Ramsey, second with the blue. Mark Ramsey, pig 208, third with the blue. Mark Ramsey, pig 205, fourth with the blue. Dylan Stormer, fifth with the blue. Reagan Sontag, sixth with the blue. In the ring right now, we have Class 501-6, Chase Contact, Dylan Stormer, and Mark Ramsey. These pigs weigh 271 to 272 pounds.
Well, the Red Hog is going to go ahead and lead off this particular carcass class. And I think just one in terms of leanness and spread and dimension product, I think that one has to go ahead and start this class. I think he's one that is very comfortable in his skeleton as well and could go quite a bit heavier weight. I think that's one that goes ahead and wins this class relatively handily. I think the young lady's Roman Rump on here is one that when you talk about just in terms of the amount of dimension and spread he's got, there's still a pretty good amount of shape on the top side of this one's skeleton, even though he's carrying a bit more flesh than what I would like him. I think that's the reason he lands in second. I'd like to maybe just clean him up and trim him through that lower third. And that's where the third place hog, the young man against the fence, is going to go ahead and slot third in this particular class. I think he's one that definitely has an advantage in terms of leanness and product out through his hip and rump. He's definitely leaner through his lower third. To me, this one's just got to get around just a hair better compared to the two right above him. I think as we get down into 4 and 5, I think we've got a pair of hogs that, again, practical about their center body, plenty of product laid on these hogs. You just talk about leanness and trimness, carcass composition. I think these need just a shot more. If you would, please congratulate all 5 of those exhibitors.
Results from class 501-6. We have Dylan Swarmer first with a blue. Chase Montag, pig 267, second with a blue. Chase Montag, pig 265, third with a blue. Mark Ramsey, fourth with a blue. Chase Montag, pig 268, fifth with a blue. Entering the ring right now, we have class 501-7, McKenna Ramsey, Reagan Sontag, Logan Herring, and Max Ramsey, weight of 274 to 278 pounds.
I think a very logical place to go ahead and start in this particular class. The young man here with the predominantly white hog or gray neck hog, I guess is what I should say. I think he's the one that, just in terms of product and shape and just overall dimension, is the one that has to go ahead and lead this charge. I think he's one that's practical about his center body and actually very mobile as he gets out here and covers the surface. I think it's relatively difficult for second, third, and fourth, and yet I think practicality is what it really boils down to. The young lady up against the fence is going to go ahead and have second in this particular class. I think he's one that is big and practical about his center body. He's one that has plenty of spread. I would like to trim him up and lean him up just a little bit on the top side of his skeleton, as well as clean him up through that lower third of his body, and yet I think he's one that slots second relatively quickly in this particular drive. The young man over there on the far end is going to go ahead and be third in this one. I think that's the big outline heavyweight hog in this particular drive, and one that you have to respect the amount of grow in that one. To me, he deviates behind his blade and probably takes some product out there, and then the barrel that rounds out the class of the young ladies is one that definitely has an advantage in terms of trimness. To me, he's one that wants to get shorter and rounder out of his hip. He's one that's carrying less product when you study him directly from behind. A very good class of carcass hogs. If you would, please congratulate those exhibitors.
Results from class 501-7. Logan Herring first with a blue. Max Ramsey second with a blue. McKenna Ramsey third with a blue. Reagan Sontag fourth with blue. In the ring right now, we have class 501-8, Bryn Stark, Max Ramsey, Dylan Stormer, and Bryn Stark, weighing 282 to 288 pounds.
I think a very logical place to go ahead and start in this particular class. So the red belted one down on the far end is the one that is from a carcass confirmation standpoint and the amount of product. I think that's one that has to go ahead and win this particular class. I think this one is very, very good and it will yield the highest amount of product on the rail. And I don't think that takes a whole heck of a lot away from the young lady here in front of me. This is going to go ahead and be your second in class. I think just what separates that pair is just cutability. I think we got to make that one just a shot leaner down through his lower third and clean him up and back through his rear rib and flank to get any higher in this particular class. but plenty of product on both those hogs. I think that's what separates these two pairs. I think the pair that falls on bottom, I use the bigger outline, more extended one, just from a sheer fact I think he's leaner and more expressive in his top shape. I think that's the one that logically has to fit into third, and then the young lady falls into fourth. Again, a big outline, practical kind of a hog. You study that one over top of him, I think he's the lightest muscle in this particular class, but a really good class of hogs. If you would please congratulate all those exhibitors.
Results from Class 501-8. Dylan Stormer first with a blue. Bryn Stark with Fake 248 second with a blue. Max Ramsey third with a blue. And Bryn Stark Fake 246 fourth with a blue. In the ring right now, we have Class 501-9, Peyton Hoffman, Tristan Stark, and Bryn Stark. Pigs weighing 289 to 290 pounds.
Well, another really nice class of carcass hogs, and we're starting to thin out, I guess, a little bit on numbers, at least in this class. And yeah, I think just from a carcass composition standpoint, I think this Duroc Barrow has to go ahead and win this particular division, or this particular class. I think he's one that does have a ton of spread over his top, and one that is extremely shapely, very expressive in his muscle. You study him, his clear advantage is when he goes directly away from you. I think he's got the most in the seat of his pants. I think there's the biggest ham laid on that one, and one that, when you study him in terms of terminal value, I think he's one that will garner the highest price as they go to the rail. I think it got quite a bit closer, and yet the young lady's Roan Rump one here in front of me is the one that's going to go ahead and be second. I think he is one that's a big, heavyweight kind of a hog, very practical in his center body. He's one that's got a great big loin. I inflated him. I'd like to maybe just lean him up when compared to that Duroc Barrow ahead of him. It's a very nice one to go ahead and fall second. I think the young lady's blue that comes in third is another one that you talked about, a big outline, heavyweight kind of a hog. He's one to me that just needs a shot more shape and product up high compared to the two directly above him. A very good class. If you will please congratulate all three of those exhibitors.
Results from Class 501-9. Katie Kaufman first with a blue. Kristen Stark second with a blue. And Brent Stark third with a blue. In the ring right now, we have class 501-10, Brent Stark, Dana Stormer, McKenna Ramsey, and Mark Ramsey. Pigs weighing 291 to 292 pounds.
Here in this class. I think it's becoming more challenging because we're getting closer and closer to a cookie cutter, and I think the one that I like to use to win this particular class is one that does have the most dimension, and one that you talk about shape on the top side of his skeleton. I think that one does have the most amount of ham too. When you study him from directly behind, I think there's just the most amount of product weight on that one to go ahead and lead this particular class. Not very challenging for me down in 2, 3, and 4. I'd like the young lady here directly in front of me to go ahead and win it, or be second in this particular class. That hog does deviate in its top line a little bit, and I wonder about product there right behind its blade, and yet you talk about shape and leanness of carcass. I think that one goes ahead and slides second relatively easily. It's in between 3 and 4, I think we're carrying quite a bit more cover relative to the ones directly above them, and yet I think practicality is what it really boils down to. The young lady's hog is bigger and more robust in its rib cage. There's more product, I think, laid on the top side of that one's skeleton. Then the young man's bear that rounds out the class is a big outline, extended heavyweight kind of one. That one to me is just a bit too wasty in its lower 1/3. I think a very good class. If you would please give those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 501-10. First place, McKenna Ramsey with the blue. Dana Stormer, second with the blue. Brent Stark, third with the blue. Mark Ramsey, fourth with the blue. In the ring right now, we have class 501-11, Megan Ramsey, Chase Montag, and McKenna Ramsey, weighing 292 to 296 pounds. In the ring right now, we do have our spring champion rated game. Chase Montag's pig, 65 to 66, weighing 296 pounds, but an average daily gain of 2.78 pounds. Congratulations, Chase. Let's give him a round of applause.
I think this class kind of splits into two pairs, in my opinion. I think the bear right here in front of me is the one that has to go ahead and win this particular class. I think just in terms of sheer weight, volume, and dimension. And then you talk about shape. I think that one's one of the leanest over his 10th in this particular drive. One that, in my mind, has to go ahead and win this particular drive. The bear that goes out across the ring is the one I use for second, and just quite honestly, I think there's tons of product laid on this hog. To me, that one's just quite a bit wastier through his lower 1/3. I'd like to clean him up and make him significantly more trim about that lower 1/3, but a nice one to go ahead and fall second in this particular drive. Got pretty close for me, I guess, between 3 and 4. I like the young lady over here to my right to go ahead and be 3. I think just in terms of leanness, I think that one has an advantage while still having plenty of spread and dimension up high. Still think there's plenty of product laid on that hog. Just need a shot more relative to the 2 directly above it. And then the young lady that rounds out the class is the one that's the least descriptive and the least dimensional in his overall shape, and yet I think a very good one. Let's go ahead and give all 4 of those exhibitors a big round of applause.
Results from class 501-11. Megan Ramsey with pig 242, first place with a blue. Chase Sontag in second place with a blue. McKenna Ramsey, third place with a blue. Megan Ramsey, pig 241, fourth with a blue. After this next class of carcass, we will be needing our first place carcass pigs from each of the previous classes to come to the ring for champion and reserve champion live carcass. In the ring right now, we have class 501-12, Max Ramsey, Tristan Stark, Reagan Sontag, Reagan Sontag. Their pigs weigh 300 to 309 pounds. Again, after this class, we will need all the first place from each of the carcass classes back to the ring for contention of champion live carcass.
As we round out this class, I think there's one that goes ahead and wins this particular drive relatively handily. That's the young man's blue here right in front of me. I think you're talking about one that's just got a ton of weight and a ton of product weight on this frame. And obviously, we're getting into some super heavy weights, and yet I don't think we've gotten too far out of the marketable weight range when you just talk about the sheer body weight. I think that one still falls in the box and will cut extremely well. Even at that weight, I don't think we're getting too waisty quite yet. I would maybe like to trim him up over his 10th just a hair, and yet talk about the amount of product. I think that one has to go ahead and slot first this particular drive. The young lady here leading these pair, I guess, is going to go ahead and be second. To me, that one's just a little bit more compact in his build. He's a little shorter body, a little bit fatter in his overall composition, and yet I think that one, again, it has a ton of product weight on the top side. He's one that got a big eye and a great big hip and rump. He's one we need to trim up just a little bit to get any higher in this particular drive. I think those two that come 3 and 4 have that advantage over the second place hog in terms of being leaner and more trim over their 10th relative to that one, and yet I think they just need to come with some more product to get any higher in this particular drive. We're talking about some super heavyweight pigs, and so we need to have plenty of product packed on them. A really good class of hogs. Please put your hands together for those exhibitors.
Results from Class 501-12. Max Ramsey first with a blue. Kristen Stark second with a blue. Reagan Sontag take 2-5-7 third with a blue. Reagan Sontag take 2-5-8 fourth with a blue. We will now have our first place pigs from each of the carcass classes come into the ring for contention of the champion live carcass. We will have 12 pigs in contention here. From Class 1 of the carcass, we have Ava West. Class 2 is Levi Fitzgerald. Class 3, Max Ramsey. Class 4, Logan Herring. Class 5, Michael Ramsey. Class 6, Dylan Stormer. Class 7, Logan Herring. Class 8, Dylan Stormer. Class 9, Caden Kaufman. Class 10, McKenna Ramsey. Class 11, Megan Ramsey. Class 12, Max Ramsey.
Well, these pigs all know their way back to the barn, and so I won't take a lot of time because at the end of the day, I think this is a really challenging show, and you could probably be sitting around ringside and like them completely different, and neither one of us could be right once they go to the rail. I mean, it's all us guessing at this point, and we can make educated guesses on who's the leanest, who has the biggest loin eye, and we won't really know until they're hanging from that rail, and that day is not today. So I guess I've tried to line them up as best I can in terms of how they look compositionally. I think it's really neat that these kids have these opportunities to show these pigs, and yeah, they're not all show pigs, but at the end of the day, we're trying to make pork and better kids, and so I think we've accomplished that. We've got kids out here that have had good learning experiences, lots of good quality hogs that are going to make the end product of pork. And to me, I guess there's one out here in terms of just spread and dimension, leanness over its 10th rib. I think there's one out here that kind of separates itself from the rest of the pack. The young man with that Duroc barrel on the far end will be your champion. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Caden Kaufman. His pig in 230 came from Class 9. We will need Tristan Stark's pig from Class 9, 250, into the ring for contention for Reserve Champion. live carcass was again Hayden Kaufman, and that banner was sponsored by the Blue Horizon Stock Farm. Coming into the ring, we have the second place from Class 9, Tristan Stark, take 250 for contention of Reserve Champion Carcass.
Well, the second out of that class comes in and obviously fits in with the rest of these, just in terms of carcass composition, length of body, the amount of product laid on the frame, and honestly, again, it just comes down to the amount of pork that's laid on each of these in a very trim package. And obviously, there's very different parts and pieces out here. That was a very challenging class, honestly, because there were so many good ones in there. The young lady that's second in that class is going to be your reserve champion. Congratulations.
Reserve champion goes to Tristan Stark from Class 9. We will now be bringing in our champion market gilt, Morgan Schuler, our champion market barrow, Ada Lund, and our champion carcass, live carcass, Hayden Kaufman, for selection of our overall champion market swine. Entering the ring right now, we have Morgan Schuler with her champion market gilt, Hayden Kaufman with his champion live carcass, and Ada Lund with her champion market barrow. This is for contention of our overall champion market swine animal.
Well, out here for the grand champion, Margaret Hogg. If you would, please give all three of these exhibitors a big round of applause. Well, we're not going to belabor this any longer. I think we've got three very, very deserving pigs of being out here. The carcass champion, the barrow champion, and the market gilt champion. I think all three of them, although they're very different, I think they're all three high quality individuals. And I'm not going to string this out any longer because I saw what I needed to see. And he's being a pain now, but I think that barrow's awfully good. He's going to be your grand. Congratulations.
The overall champion market swine goes to Ada Lund. Entering the ring is our reserve champion market barrow, shown by Morgan Schuler for contention of the overall reserve champion market swine. Again, the overall champion market swine went to Ada Lund.
Well, we dropped that reserve barrel in here, and quite honestly, that was the deepest division of the day, and some very, very high-quality individuals, even back in the barn still, that could come out here and still play the game for reserve champion overall. And yes, I think that pair was very, very good in that division. I'm going to keep them together. That young lady's barrel will be reserve grand. Congratulations.
Our overall reserve champion market swine went to Morgan Schuler. We will be moving into our pen of 3 division. Exhibitors, you will be bringing your 3 pigs into the ring and pinning them, and then once all the pigs are in, the judge will go through and evaluate. Again, exhibitors, you will be bringing all 3 pigs to the ring, being pinned, and then we will have the judge evaluate them in the pins. Exhibitors in the class 101-1, pen of 3, please be bringing your pig 3 to the ring. We would like to recognize all of our help that is helping today. We have our superintendents of Randy and Holly Cooper and Luke Hoffman. Thank you to them for their advice and guidance in our swine program. We have our ring help of Carl McCarty, Blake Cooper, Keith Mitchell, Jill Bemis, Michelle Burt, and Allie Burt, along with a whole bunch of other parents in the back. Thank you to all of them. Let's give all of our helpers a round of applause. We do have our royalty here in the ring. We've been making them work all morning. We are going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. So here is Dakota Kraus.
Hi, I'm Dakota Kraus. I am first runner-up for Fair Queen. It's really great to be here to see all of you here supporting these kids with all of their livestock, pigs, cows, whatever it may be. Thank you all for coming out, and I'm going to hand it over to our queen.
Hi guys, my name is Tian Hoy. I am this year's Fair Queen. You might see me out walking around doing my job. I'm kind of everywhere. You usually find me on my family's farm or working with my dad or even maybe at the daycare. I probably know some of your kids, grandkids. So I've been actively involved in FFA since my freshman year, and that includes attending multiple state and national conventions, as well as just multiple various activities like community service, the watermelon feed yesterday. Some of you might have seen me there. I am also the student representative of the Adams County Chamber of Commerce. So some of you may have seen me at the flight breakfast last week. or even the Sunday supper coming up, or even the golf tournament in August. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out and supporting. And of course, we couldn't have done this without the judge and the fair board and everything. So, and good luck to the exhibitors.
Thank you, girls. Congratulations on your reign, and enjoy the rest of your county fair. We do have one more group of people that we do need to thank for some new pig pens here. As you know, our numbers are up, so the Adams County Fair Board did purchase 20 new pens for pig space. A good purchase addition to our barns, and let's continue to keep those filled. So let's thank the Fair Board for those pens and all their work here at the fair.
All right, we're going to make this easy on everybody. When I talk, I'm going to go stand in front of the pen that I'm going to place, okay? So we don't have 18 pigs running around out here. It's going to sound a little monotonous, a lot like the carcass contest, but basically what I'm judging on is uniformity, carcass conformation, leanness, weight distribution, the amount of product that each of the pens has. Very similar to the carcass contest, except see how close we can get all three of them to be the same. I think this young lady has a very exceptional pen in terms of weight. I think they're all extremely heavyweight. They're great in their carcass composition. I think a very, very easy place to start this particular class. I think she wins this relatively handily. Honestly, I would like to see these pigs a little heavier weight, and yet when you talk about uniformity and carcass distribution and the way that they're all put together very similarly, I think this young man has a pen that fits together very well and ends up second in this particular class. Obviously, relative to those ones right above him, we got to have more total pounds of product, need a few more days on feed, but a very good pen nonetheless to go ahead and be second in this particular class. Young lady right here is going to have your third place in this particular class. Much heavier weight group than what our second place pin is, and yet there's one in here that just doesn't quite fit in terms of uniformity. That's the young lady's barrel here in the back. I think that one's kind of an outlier in terms of weight and distribution. Excellent pin nonetheless. Young man here right in front of me is going to be fourth. Same can be said for his. I think he's got two that fit together exceptionally well. Another big heavyweight pin. There's one in there that just kind of falls out in terms of uniformity relative to the rest of them. Very good place to end up fourth. This young lady is going to be fifth in this particular class, and again, I think a very uniform pin in terms of distribution and weight. To me, there's just not quite enough product laid on these for the amount of weight that they are carrying. I think a lot of that is trim. I'd like to see them just come with just a bit more dimension. Then the young man that rounds out the class is one that you have to admire the ability to get these three out here. But to me, we've got to come with more punch, more spread, and just more overall product. I think a very, very good class of pin of threes. If you would